Mike Katz's story makes one thing clear right from the start. We're talking about someone way beyond ordinary. People called him Superman, and it wasn't just because of his impressive muscles. It was because of his courage, his resilience, and the emotional strength he carried. From a young age, his life was shaped by challenges that would bring most people to their knees, but he always chose to stand back up. When most folks saw him shining on bodybuilding stages, nobody imagined the weight of the battles he had faced growing up. Bullying, discrimination, and constant unfairness shaped who he was, but they never broke him. Actually, every hit he took became fuel. Instead of giving up or hiding, Mike chose to rise, inside and out. Throughout this video, you're going to follow a journey that goes far beyond bodybuilding. You'll discover the story of a man who turned suffering into purpose, discipline into power, and vulnerability into legacy. Get ready, because every chapter of this journey shows that sometimes the biggest trophy isn't the one you hold in your hands, but the one you leave in the hearts of others. Ready to jump into this with us? Then let's go. Mike Katz's story begins on November 14th, 1944, in New Haven, Connecticut, where a seemingly ordinary kid faced challenges that would define his entire life. Skinny, Jewish, wearing thick glasses, he became an easy target for jokes, cruel nicknames, and exclusion. The world around him felt small and hostile, and school, which was supposed to be a place to learn, turned into a silent battlefield. The bullying he went through left deep marks on his childhood. Every mean comment, every look of disdain, created invisible scars that didn't show on his body but weighed heavily on his heart. Still, instead of breaking him, that pain began to transform, slowly, into fuel. He realized that if he wanted to change his life, he needed to build something inside himself that no one could tear down. Everything shifted the day he walked into a movie theater and saw Steve Reeves playing Hercules. That powerful, confident figure on the screen sparked something inside him. Mike didn't want to get strong just to impress others. He wanted to get strong to protect himself, to stand tall, and never be belittled again. Sitting there among strangers, he decided he wanted to become a giant too, physically and mentally. With no money for a gym membership, Mike turned his basement into his own training world. He used milk crates as weights, followed workout manuals that arrived by mail, and covered the walls with posters of bodybuilders he saw as heroes. That basement became his refuge, his laboratory, and the stage for his personal rebuilding. As he stepped into his teenage years, Mike Katz carried the emotional marks of childhood, but he also began discovering a new strength quietly growing inside him. His family had always enjoyed sports, but after so many years seeing Mike skinny, insecure, and withdrawn, nobody expected him to become an athlete. It was as if the whole world had written his story for him. But Mike knew it only made sense if he wrote the next chapters himself. Determined to prove his worth, he threw himself into those improvised workouts he had started years earlier. Every rep was a small act of rebellion against the destiny others tried to assign to him. And it was never about vanity, it was about respect. He wanted to show, mainly to himself, that he was no longer the fragile kid everyone remembered. Little by little, something incredible started to happen. The boy who once went unnoticed began catching people's attention. His arms were getting stronger, his posture changed, and that tired look in his eyes was replaced by focus and determination. Classmates who once laughed at him started watching him differently, some with curiosity, others with admiration. Mike was proving that no one gets to define who you are once you decide to fight for yourself. But the real transformation wasn't on the outside, it was inside. Mike won his first real battle, overcoming emotional pain and rebuilding his self-esteem. And that's something many of us understand well. There's always a moment when we have to choose between staying who we've been so far, or stepping into who we could become. Mike chose to evolve. When Mike Katz got into Southern Connecticut State University, the kid who once only wanted respect finally found a place to show what he was truly capable of. Playing as a linebacker, he quickly stood out for his aggressive, disciplined style, impossible to ignore. He was the kind of athlete who didn't hold back. Every play felt like a message saying he was there to make a mark. And of course, that caught the attention of people far beyond the university campus. His physical strength, built over years of relentless effort, combined with the intensity he brought to every game, started drawing the eyes of NFL scouts. For someone who grew up dealing with insecurity and rejection, being noticed by the biggest names in American football felt like watching his whole life finally make sense. It didn't take long for the New York Jets to open their doors to him, and that's when the world realized that the skinny kid from the past had become something much bigger. With the New York Jets, Mike built a reputation as almost indestructible. His insane endurance and powerful physique earned him a nickname from teammates and opponents alike, Superhuman. And that name didn't come out of nowhere. He played with such intensity that it felt impossible to knock him down. It was the adult version of the same kid who once decided that nobody would ever step on him again, now channeling that same emotional strength at the highest level of sports. But maybe the moment that best defines his spirit happened in 1968. Right before one of the most important stretches of the season, Mike suffered a severe knee injury, the kind that would sideline almost any athlete. But he wasn't any athlete. Instead of getting treatment, he decided to keep playing. The result? He went out on the field for 6 straight games, pushing through a level of pain most people would consider unbearable. Think about that. How many could compete at a high level while carrying that kind of weight? The ending, of course, was inevitable. The injury got worse, and Mike was forced to end his football career way earlier than planned. It was a tough blow. Losing a dream is never easy. But without realizing it, he was being pushed toward the most important chapter of his life. That early retirement looked like a failure, but in reality, it was the start of his second great journey. Bodybuilding was waiting for him, and he was about to step into that world stronger than ever. When his football career came to an end, most people would have assumed Mike Katz would feel lost. But he did the exact opposite. All the strength, discipline, and fire that had followed him since his teenage years were now redirected to a brand new stage, bodybuilding. It was like destiny simply changed lanes, placing him in a sport where pure effort could actually turn someone into a legend. And Mike saw in that moment the second chance he had been waiting for. His debut came in 1969 at the IFBB Mr. America, a bold move for someone still figuring out his place in that world. But Mike didn't step on stage to try it out. He stepped on stage to compete. And as he progressed, year after year, people noticed something different about him. It wasn't just the physique, it was the story walking beside him. By the 1970s, his name was circulating through the biggest international competitions. His breakthrough came in 1972 when he won the Mr. World title, one of the most prestigious trophies of the era. That victory didn't just put him on the map, it proved his willpower could take him to unbelievable heights. And he didn't stop there. In 1976, he achieved something huge. Second place at Mr. Olympia in the over 200-pound category, over 90 kilograms. That was extraordinary for someone many once saw as an underdog. Still, competing among the taller athletes, Mike stood about 6 feet 1 inch, around 1.85 m. Came with its own challenges. Taller bodybuilders need to work twice as hard to achieve perfect proportions, and Mike knew that. Every workout, every pose, every detail was carefully adjusted to balance size and symmetry. And that effort showed. The audience admired his presence, but fellow athletes respected his technique. And inside the sport, that respect is worth as much as any trophy. But what truly made Mike unforgettable was his character. Humble, kind, always willing to help, and never stepping on anyone to get ahead. When Pumping Iron hit theaters in 1977, the world got a new look at bodybuilding, and more importantly, a new kind of athlete. Among giants like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno, there was someone who stood out not for having the biggest muscles, but for the humanity that poured out of every scene. Mike Katz wasn't playing a role. He was simply himself, emotional, honest, and deeply real. And that's exactly what won the audience over. While filming, Mike was training for Mr. Universe with the same fierce discipline that had followed him his whole life. But it was backstage that one of the most unforgettable moments of the documentary happened. Ken Waller and a few competitors decided to hide Mike's shirt as a prank. For the casual viewer, it might have looked like harmless fun, but for anyone who knew Mike's past, the bullying, the discrimination, the long road of overcoming, that stunt was more than a joke. It was an old wound being torn open again, right in front of millions. The frustration captured on Mike's face in that scene wasn't acting. It was pure reality. The way he processed the hit, tried to keep his composure, and still pushed forward made thousands of people relate to him instantly. It's easy to root for the undefeated champion, but Mike represented the almost there crowd, the ones who give everything they've got even when they know they may never hold the trophy. He became the symbol of those internal battles no one sees, but every single one of us faces at some point in life. And that vulnerability is exactly what won people over. While some athletes in the documentary came across like untouchable superheroes, Mike was the human being anyone could see themselves in. His sincerity stood in sharp contrast to Arnold's theatrical charisma, creating the perfect emotional balance in the film's narrative. People didn't just watch Mike, they felt Mike. In the end, Pumping Iron turned Mike Katz into something bigger than a competitor. He became the soul of the movie, the athlete who didn't need to win to inspire, the voice of those who fight without guarantees. When Mike Katz dove headfirst into bodybuilding, his training philosophy quickly caught attention for one simple reason. He did what most people avoided. In the beginning, his workouts lasted 3 to 4 hours a day, long sessions where every rep felt like a declaration of war against his own limits. But over time, Mike realized intensity mattered more than volume. Every minute needed to count for 10, and that mindset would shape his style forever. Training alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger gave that approach a whole new form. Mike adopted roughly 90-minute sessions with no rest, a method as brutal as it was effective. No long breaks, no distractions, just absolute focus. That style demanded not only physical power, but a mental toughness that very few athletes have. It was as if he were telling his own body, "You're going to follow my mind, not the other way around." One of his favorite techniques was the drop set, where he'd reduce the weight and keep going until total muscular failure. Today, this is common in gyms everywhere, but for Mike, it was almost a ritual. He believed real progress happened when you kept pushing long after your body begged you to stop. For him, training wasn't just about lifting weights, it was about lifting himself. But there was another detail that made his routine even more legendary. Mike loved training legs. At a time when many athletes focused mainly on upper body aesthetics, he did the exact opposite. Heavy squats, extensions to failure, endless reps. That was where he felt truly alive. Mike's diet was just as intense as his training. To maintain a physique that looked carved out of stone, he followed an eating style that many today would consider extreme, but it made perfect sense for the brutal routine he lived. Every day, Mike ate around 4 pounds of meat, roughly 1.8 kilograms, ensuring a massive protein intake to support workouts that pushed his body to the limit. But his meals didn't stop at meat. He added oatmeal, eggs, fruit, and pasta to balance energy, muscle density, and recovery. These foods acted like slow-release fuel, helping him perform during long and intense sessions. Nothing was accidental. Every choice had a purpose. Keep the body fueled, strong, and ready for whatever came next. One detail that stood out was his view on natural cholesterol. Back then, the topic wasn't even close to the debate it sparks today. Mike believed foods richer in cholesterol helped muscle recovery and increased physical density. It was a philosophy built on practice. He relied on what he saw in the mirror, how he performed, and how quickly he recovered. And honestly, it worked for him. Along with real food, Mike also used the popular supplements of the era. Among them were Whaler shakes and desiccated liver tablets, old-school bodybuilding favorites. These supplements helped fill nutritional gaps and gave him that extra boost on the heaviest training days. They weren't meal replacements, just reinforcements for an already strong and disciplined eating plan. When Mike decided to retire from competition in 1981, during his final Mr. Olympia, many people thought that would be the end of his presence in bodybuilding. But to him, it was only the beginning of a new phase, maybe the most important one. After years on stage, Mike realized he could contribute in a different way, by shaping people, passing on values, and helping others find the same path of strength that once saved him. Retirement didn't put out his fire, it simply redirected it. With a degree in physical education, Mike found in the classroom a new kind of stage. There, he wasn't just teaching technique, he was teaching discipline, respect, and self-control, the pillars that had guided his entire journey. His students didn't just learn about exercise, they learned about character. He knew bodybuilding had shaped his life, and now he wanted to use everything he had learned to shape other lives too. It was as if all the childhood pain, all the battles of youth, and all the discipline of adulthood had finally found a greater purpose. At the same time, Mike decided to chase an old dream, opening his own gym. And in 1979, that dream finally became real. His first location was built with one purpose in mind: welcoming people who were looking for change, just like he once was. That gym wasn't just a place to work out. It became a meeting point for anyone who needed motivation, direction, and support. And over time, the project grew far beyond anything he expected. New locations opened, and the Catz name became a symbol of commitment and quality in the fitness world. That legacy became even stronger when his son, Mike Katz Jr., joined the business. Together, they became some of the biggest Planet Fitness operators in the New Haven area. Father and son, side by side, turning what started as one man's dream into a full family tradition. It was proof that bodybuilding hadn't been just a career. It had become a legacy that crossed generations, bringing the family together through discipline, health, and inspiration. Even after stepping away from competitions, Mike never stopped living the sport. He kept showing up at events, writing books, giving talks, and inspiring athletes coming up behind him. And even after earning respect on stage and in gyms all over, Mike always made it clear that his real strength came from somewhere else: his family. With his wife, Mike Katz, he built a solid, balanced home filled with mutual support. While many athletes get lost in the pressure of competing, Mike always found in his home the safe place where he could breathe, reflect, and remember why he was doing all of this in the first place. Michelle wasn't just the wife of a well-known athlete. She was his partner in dreams, routines, sacrifices, and quiet victories. On the hard days, she was the one who helped him stay grounded. On the good days, she was the one celebrating right beside him. And when bodybuilding evolved into a business, Michelle was there too, holding everything together and helping turn a passion into a family career. That sense of family strength became even clearer when Mike Katz Jr. took his first steps into the fitness world. That father and son relationship became a symbol of what discipline can create when it starts at home. While many talk about building material inheritances, Mike built something far more rare: the continuity of an ideal. And even as the years went by, Mike never stopped doing what defined him: training, writing, teaching, and inspiring. But life is never easy, and in 2011, Mike Katz's world took a turn as sudden as it was devastating. After decades of heavy training, competitions, and an active lifestyle, he received a shocking diagnosis: an aortic aneurysm, a silent, extremely dangerous condition with a high risk of death. For most people, news like that would crush any sense of hope. But for Mike, it became one more moment where life tried to wipe him out, and once again, he chose to fight back. The doctors were blunt. If Mike hadn't kept his body in shape all those years, he probably wouldn't have survived. His strong musculature, conditioned heart, and disciplined lifestyle were, at that moment, his greatest allies. It's incredible to think that all those years in the gym didn't just build an impressive physique, they literally saved his life. Recovery was a whole new chapter. It didn't end in the operating room. The battle continued for months. Mike had to tap into the same discipline he used for his most brutal workouts: slow steps, absolute consistency, and an unshakable mindset. Every single day demanded emotional strength, patience, and determination, just like when he turned childhood bullying into fuel. After surviving the aneurysm, Mike realized his story could be a warning. He began speaking more openly about prevention, regular checkups, and the importance of taking care of your body before it's too late. His voice started reaching people who often neglected their own health. At that point, it wasn't about training, aesthetics, or performance anymore. It was about life. Talking about Mike Katz's legacy means talking about something far beyond trophies, rankings, or statistics. He became a living symbol of effort, humility, ethics, and perseverance, qualities that build careers far more solid than any title ever could. Mike showed that being big isn't just about lifting massive weights, but lifting yourself back up after every fall. His influence even reached icons like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who admitted he learned from Mike, especially in leg training, an area Arnold himself considered a weak spot. That shows just how far Mike's presence extended beyond competition. He inspired through example, consistency, and total dedication in every training session. Over the years, his impact was officially recognized. He was inducted into the National Jewish Sports Hall of Fame and the Athletic Hall of Fame at Southern Connecticut State University. But ironically, those formal honors don't come close to what truly made him unforgettable. Mike became eternal not because of medals, but because of the lives he touched, inside and outside the sport. And that's what makes his legacy so powerful. Mike Katz inspires not by the number of victories he earned, but by the way he lived every single battle. Reaching the end of Mike Katz's story feels like looking in the mirror and realizing that all of us carry a little bit of that warrior spirit inside. His journey reminds us that no one is defined by the difficulties they face, but by the way they choose to overcome them. And if his life touched you in any way, through his courage, his discipline, or his humanity, then this video has done its job. Now, I want to give you a direct invitation. If this journey inspired you, hit that like button. It helps the channel reach more people who, just like you, need to hear real stories of resilience. And if you want to take an extra step, consider becoming a channel member. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. There are always stories here that motivate, move, and make us reflect on who we are and who we want to become.